What is up, Podheads? Episode 71 of the Podio Slave podcast. Tony here, as always, with Anthony and Nate. How are you boys doing?
Hey, what's up? It's Nate. Just kidding. It's Anthony. What's up, guys?
Nate over here. Good night to geek out tonight.
Yeah, it's always a good night to geek out when you're geeking out with your boys about music and stuff that you love. We had a guest tonight, Twan. Tell us about the guest.
Our guest was the one and only Jameson Ketchum. So Jameson is a music journalist. He spent some time on the road with bands as a tour manager. He was an editor. He is a podcaster. And one of the big reasons why we wanted to have him on is he is an author. He has a book dropping tomorrow, actually. It's called Name Dropping, Seeking Creative Truth Through Trendy Altruism in Punk Rock. And being someone that has, I've read most of it, and you'll hear that in the interview. I really dig it. I think he's just a genuine human being that is our similar age, that grew up in kind of the same scene, and it chronicles his journey through music and using music as an outlet, which, again, that's literally what this podcast is. It's, kind of chasing your heroes and reliving some of the magic. So I think we're going to get into the interview now with Jameson Ketchum.
Jameson, thank you for coming on. Excited to talk to you tonight about the book.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Finally.
I know, right? We've been dancing around this for a couple of months. Speaking of that was kind of how I wanted to intro this. It was probably April. You DM'd us on Instagram and you're like, I love your podcast name. And we were all like, nice. That's awesome. And then just kind of got to talking in DMs and you were like, I'm writing a book. I'm like, oh man, it'd be cool. We've never talked to an author. That'd be a lot of fun. And it was just such an organic 2021 conversation with somebody that you don't know across the internet that turned into this, which is pretty cool. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. So again, thanks for agreeing to coming on and being our first author.
Oh yeah, no, it's a total honor to be on, like, as a fan of the podcast. And then I love how you put that, because I feel like as soon as you connect with someone that's like somewhat around your age, like I'm 35, I'll just guess that we're all around the same age.
Correct.
If you say Warped Tour to someone around our age, or you say Dashboard, like there's just sort of that like quick lingo that if you're like, oh yeah, totally, you're like, yeah, we'd be friends. We'd be friends if we were in the same place. So yeah, I love that.
That's happened on so many different episodes too, where like, oh man, we would have been friends with these guys in high school, and it's like becomes like a full-on friendship after, whether it's a musician or whoever. It's like, nice, we're all kind of on the same page here.
Yeah, I think to think like we all grew up listening to the same stuff, and then we're all as adults figuring out how we can still like be a part of it, like through podcasting or writing or whatever. Yeah, I just love that, because you just have that shared thing, even though you didn't grow up together, I think. And
it's just so funny in this era, like that DM exchange. I think the fact that we said, hey, let's have you on the podcast was pretty quick. Like 20 years ago, obviously podcasts didn't exist, but that would have taken like weeks. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you call someone up, let me get back to you. And it's just amazing. It's just a testament to the digital age.
Or it would have been an instant message on AOL.
Yeah, that's right.
And you would have got my away message.
Yeah.
but your away messess would have been like lyrics from The Used or something.
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right.
So Jameson, we know a fair amount about you from the book, and just reading up on you and whatnot. Our listeners may or may not. So we want to kind of get to know you a little bit. So you didn't wake up, and we say this almost every interview. You didn't wake up and be in a band. You didn't wake up and write a book about music. So early music memories, like what was that spark that you were like, you know what, this is I'm more than just a fan?
Yeah. Oh, I have a hard time saying the very first, because I feel like there was two or three that started the fire and then really got it going. But I remember listening to Dookie in third grade and thinking, not only is this the best music I've ever heard, because I'm a third grader and I know, but like looking back at it as an adult and being like, who let me listen to this? This guy has serious mental issues he needs some help with. He's talking about going to hookers, like, and I'm in third grade, just bopping along to it. So Green Day is a huge one. And then I think a little bit older, it was definitely MXPX. And again, I think anyone somewhat around our age, and especially if you grew up a certain way, MXPX is usually the answer to that question. That these were the first guys that I saw that it was safe to listen to as far as like growing up in church, but then it was also like, oh, but you can have full sleeve tattoos and you can be a skate punk and play this music and look this way. That was the first band that I, for whatever reason, was just like, I got to know everything about these guys.
Well, it's funny you say Green Day, because I remember seeing the Basket Case video on MTV, and it literally was the fastest song I'd ever heard. I was like, how can he play that fast? I remember my dad being like, this is wild, you know? And at the time he was, I don't know, in his 30s. He's probably like, what the hell is this? But yeah, I think we all share a similar upbringing with that album, for sure.
Yeah. I think, it's got to be over 25 years old now, right?
And 94?
94, yeah.
33, 94? Right around there.
Yeah. So it's so crazy to think of that. And I don't think I've owned it. I don't think I've ever owned that record. Like it was definitely a thing that like my best friend had it, whose parents didn't care about what they listened to, kind of thing. It was like going to your friend's house to listen to a record that your parents wouldn't let you have. It's such a funny idea now.
It dropped in 94, and I was that friend. My mom cared, but she didn't care. I was a good kid. I did well in school. I had that record. I had Offspring's Smash. You know, I had stuff that I probably shouldn't have had at 10. You know what I mean? 9, 10 years old. So. Did
you guys also do the Columbia House scam?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That's come up a few times.
Yep. I did that. All my friends did that, and I remember getting like Dragula, like Rob Zombie's Dragula in the mail, and being like, oh, this is can't stay at my house.
That actually kind of reminds me too, because that program was specific to like our generation, and because we're all super broke. Like it was like, what was it, 15 CDs for a penny, but you paid a shitload for shipping, but like your parents would hook you up once in a while. And it got me thinking, like, how else did you get music? Like, how else do you have access to that? Like, we're from Maine. There was only so many music industry type jobs available. It was basically a record store or a stagehand, but you kind of had to be old enough to even do those things. So what was like your first job in the scene, kind of getting started as a fan?
Yeah, I honestly, I worked at a Sam Goody, and that was like the biggest deal to me, which later became FYE to anyone that remembers either of those stores. But
yeah, right.
Yeah, I remember because of movies like Empire Records and High Fidelity, I was like, oh, working at a record store, like, look how much fun it is. Clearly that's reality. Clearly it's going to be that fun every day that you're going to dance with girls on the counter and stuff. And then, quickly, of course, you find out it's not, and it's a retail job like anything else. But that's still like, it's funny because I laugh about working there now, but I met people like label reps would come in to do our displays or to drop off free music and free tickets, and those shows and that free music I can still cite as, oh yeah, I remember when they dropped off tickets to go see Say Anything, and that's how I got into this other band, and then I kept in touch with them for years, and that led to this and that. So as much as I didn't know, like at 19, that working at a retail store could do anything that would be substantial down the road, I guess I could say like that was my first like dip into the industry. And we had a lot of like live performances too, which I talk about in the book. But yeah, some which we can get into that later. But yeah, Sam Goody was the jam for a long time.
Where was that located? That Sam Goody?
Portland, Oregon.
Nice.
So I'm still near there.
Was it right next to the last Blockbuster? I gotta ask.
Oh, I know. I have a picture in front of that from a few years ago. So nice. proud of that last Blockbuster.
The funny thing about the Blockbuster thing, Nate, there was a Blockbuster in our town growing up that is now our record store essentially in our town. So, and it's South Portland, which is also kind of funny.
Oh, I've honestly always wanted to go to Maine. I've always had such a thing about Maine. It just looks beautiful.
It's great in the summer. I mean, if you ski, it's not bad in the winter either. And I didn't start skiing until I was like 26, but it's it can be a lot of fun year round if you don't mind a little bit of cold. And the winters haven't been that bad the last few years, right, Twan?
I'm not a big winter guy. So
no, neither am I. But.
And you'll hear them call me Twan. That's my childhood nickname, and I haven't escaped it. So it's not a fourth host if you hear that name. Yeah, winters. I don't leave my house in the winter, so I just hole up. So I don't think you're missing much, especially if you're living out there in that Portland.
Yeah.
But come on, check it out. Just make sure it's in the summer.
Yeah. I didn't enjoy this Portland until I toured and saw a lot of the rest of the country and was like, oh, there's a lot of nothing There's
Right.
I have some like really favorite spots for sure, but I remember like bands would come through town and talk about how lucky we were to live in Portland and have the mountains and have the beach and all that. And I was like, yeah, it's fine. Every kid feels the same way about their hometown. And then, yeah, you see other stuff and you're like, oh, this is why people love it here. Like, I should be more proud of this.
Right.
So, I mean, you've worn a bunch of hats now in the music industry. You've been a journalist, a producer, a tour manager, as you just mentioned. Talk a little bit about the tour managing stuff. I'm curious as to how that came about and where you went, and give us some of those places you like to go.
Yeah, I laugh about the tour manager thing now because I feel like I put that title on myself and didn't quite know what it entailed. So the band that I toured the most with is a band called Fall Star, and they're on Face Down Records now. And I kind of put that label on me thinking like, oh, because this is a thing I want to get into and these are my friends. So like, I'll just say that's what I'm doing and I'll figure it out as I go. Once I saw how real tour managers worked, I was like, I was not a tour manager. I couldn't even get them. I mean, yeah, I couldn't get everyone to be anywhere on time or anything like that because we're all friends and we've been friends for years. So you can't all of a sudden put one of your friends in charge. It just doesn't, no one's going to listen. So, but touring was just like my favorite thing that I've probably ever done. And yeah, some of the favorite places, like, so I talk about this in the book. We did not, especially the first couple tours, we did not stay anywhere. Obviously, if you have money, you can get a hotel. That never happens. But after a few tours, you've made friends in all these different cities, and you've got at least a floor to sleep on. So after a while, the first few, you don't know anyone. You get lucky if, oh, my friend's cousin might know someone here, that kind of thing. But so anyways, that leads to sleeping in Walmart parking lots. And sleeping in the van is fine, but you've also been in the van all day long. And it's a lot of the times it was 7 guys total sweating and farting the whole day. And you're going to sleep in that night, like sweating. Yeah. So we'd sleep outside a lot and just on the concrete, which, yeah, it's not great. But I think it was just a thing where a lot of times we'd be going to sleep and somebody inevitably would kind of yell out, like, what are we even doing? Like we have beds at home. Like we got paid $25 for that show and we can't even spend it. We can't eat. Like we're eating like Vienna sausages and like saltine crackers. We have beds at home. We have jobs at home. Like, why would we choose to be out here? And of course, every time you're just like, no, you're absolutely right. But I'm also somehow having a total blast and something you're going to remember forever too. So those memories are 100% worth it. And, staying in friends' houses in places like Nashville and even stuff in like Kansas City where it's just like, yeah, why would I ever be in Kansas City? There's probably no reason I'll ever go there just for fun. Like, so just all these places in the States that became really special because there was no reason to even be there.
So we had Matty Arsenal from A Loss for Words, and he was talking about how when they got, signed to Velocity, the Rise imprint, his hometown friends were like, holy shit, you're a rock star, you got signed, you're going to be rich. And he told us, he's like, yeah, we never made any money. And it's just funny that perspective. So being on the road, like what surprised you? Like now that you were on the other side, because I assume up to that point you're just a fan of the music. What surprised you about being on the road other than sleeping on the concrete in a Walmart?
Yeah. And sometimes getting peed on. That happened once or twice.
Jeez.
Totally by accident. No, I think a big surprise was how much I remember before I left for the first one, a friend saying, you think you're going to get all this stuff done on tour because you know that you're going to be in the van for hours at a time. Like you think you take books with you, you take projects with you, like all this stuff. And he's like, you're not going to get them done. Those things aren't going to happen. And I was like, yeah, well, everyone's different. I'll be fine. And yeah, you just feel like your brain turns to mush pretty quickly to where you're kind of just surviving. You're kind of just, well, I could watch something on my phone, but that's going to take up, Wi-Fi or whatever. That's going to kill my battery. Like it just turns into a thing where you feel like you have nothing else to do but look out the window. And that's fine for a while because you feel like, yeah, this is a weird experience. Like, yeah, I might be bored, but just enjoy it, think about it, really take it in. And then of course, after, 2 or 3 hours, you're just like, screw this, man. Like I need a screen in front of my face now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the boredom and I think I'm going to get so much done. I was a managing editor of Substream magazine while I was touring. So I thought I was going to get all this writing done. But instead it turned into every stop we made, I just had to go run and find a Starbucks and try to finish an article. And it was that part was super stressful, of course. So
we got to give Starbucks a plug here. That's the second time that
Oh, yeah.
Someone's told us, we had Greg Bregdorf on episode 64, and he was like, yeah, we'd wake up in the morning and try to find a Starbucks to poop in because we didn't want to poop on the bus. So Starbucks is just the friend of the traveling musician.
Oh, it is. I hope you guys can get sponsored by Starbucks.
That'd be great. Starbucks, we're here.
Yeah, you would. I feel like the GPS just became like you start punching in Starbucks or Barnes and Noble, and that was like your hub for the day, and you were never so happy to see a Barnes and Noble.
Jameson, with the ups and downs of this kind of touring life that you were part of, is there one kind of specific tour or moment that really sticks out for you? I know it's hard to pick your favorite kid in that regard, but one that kind of like all the stars align. This is just like I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah, I this is right at the beginning of the book. I talk about this, but we were out with some other kind of like very Christian bands, and I say very Christian just meaning they wanted to pray for people after the show, and they wanted to pray about healing and miracles, and they were all just totally down for that. It was Sleeping Giant and the Glorious Unseen. So yeah, I won't give too much away, only because this is like right at the beginning of the book.
Yeah,
but
right at the start.
But what we ended up sort of witnessing, and I to this day don't know what it was that we saw, but just sort of some seemingly supernatural stuff, and that's not to say like, yeah, I feel like. I know I tell the story in the book, but I think talking about it still, I'm always just like, because I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing because I still don't really know what happened. But suffice it to say, I think we did see something that was pretty otherworldly, and that was perhaps a miracle. People getting healed. There was something that seemed to look like a demon possession happening. Like, it's so weird to ever say that stuff out loud, but as weird as it was, that tour, it was called The Wake, and it was 3 days long, which is nothing. They had toured out to do it and toured back, but those 3 days with Sleeping Giant and Glorious Unseen and a lot of other bands, I think that was probably one of the first times where it just felt like I wasn't there to like witness it as an observer, that I was a little bit more part of the story or part of the team. And that's a theme that goes throughout the book, is kind of that imposter syndrome idea, that even when I reach things goals I never thought I would reach, I'd still be like, but am I supposed to be here? And like, maybe I'm just tricking everyone, which I guess we all have that a little bit.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling.
I mean, that's this podcast. No.
Yeah. Anytime anybody says yes, I'm like, do they know? Cool. All right. Yeah. Let's go.
Like, all
I'm
right,
supposed to be here. I am.
Yeah, got you again.
I always make it like, well, I manifested this when I was 16, so this is supposed to happen.
That's right. Yeah, the whole thing of, when people say like, if you would have told 16-year-old me that I'd be talking to this band,
totally.
I just really enjoy that, because I think I want to embrace that as like, yeah, that's not silly. Like, maybe you did manifest it. Maybe in some way, yeah, that was a thing that you were always on a path to do. I don't know if I believe that stuff as much as I think it's cool to think about.
I'm in your boat with that, but I got to give Nate credit, because I've known you now since we were probably like 11 or 12. So 26 or 7 years. And in getting to obviously really know you, because we've been friends for so long, going to concerts with you, doing all kinds of stuff like that, it was always, hey man, no, we'll find a way to meet so-and-so. We'll find a way to get, over to this spot that we shouldn't get to. We'll find a way to get tickets even though it's sold out. And it always seemed to happen around Nate. So I got to give him credit. He does manifest that stuff, and it does happen somehow.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't feel like I've ever been that person. Maybe someone can read the book and say that I was, but yeah, I feel like when you have that friend though, it's a lucky rabbit's foot, Nate.
Oh yeah, it's Nate.
Now I want to ask you, what was a thing, if you got a story, what was a time like that where you're like, I can't believe that worked?
Oh boy, I mean, the last year and a half.
Yeah,
yeah, seriously.
A lot of that. I mean, we've just been, knocking on doors, and people have said yes, that have cared to and have been gracious with their time, just like you're being tonight. And we're curious, so that's part of what I think makes it fun. Mm-hmm. and being able to ask questions that aren't necessarily just like, you're run of the mill, like, oh, we want to talk to you because you're a name. Like, no, we want to talk to you because we want to know about this, and this, because we've always thought about it, because we've been fans of the industry for, since we were 7. So.
Yeah. Isn't that, that's another one of those things that it might become like commonplace or daily for anybody, but for you guys, like, yeah, I think there's just so much value in stopping and being like, no, it's a big deal. We got to talk to the distillers. It's, yeah, again, if you would have told 10-year-old me, 12-year-old me, like, embrace that sort of that it's totally weird. There's no reason for any of it, that any of us should be talking to anybody.
And I think for us, like, we knew we were more than just a casual fan, like 20 years ago. You know what I mean? I mean, just the energy we put out there, and Nate's worked as a stagehand. I used to do a zine, worked in college radio. So like, I honestly feel like it was all harnessed for something like this. And it honestly doesn't surprise me. And that's not cocky. It's just, it makes sense given the energy we put out.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it too, I think. Yeah, but that's a really cool way to think of it.
And I mean, it's bringing it back to your story. You've been in different situations, again, with different hats in the industry, because it was something that meant something to you too. So obviously, like finding your way on tour, or being, you said you were editing a magazine while you're out on tour, like that. You don't just wake up and do that. Like Anthony said, it's one of those things that like you care about it. So you're like, I want to be part of this. How can I be part of this? And you found all these ways to do it. Talk a little bit more about the music journalist piece, because I thought I wanted to do something like that in college before. Like I took an intro to communications class. I was like, this is something that I would like to do on the sports side when I was a kid, and never thought about it on the music side. But like I've come to follow a lot of music journalists and listen to opinions of things, and that stuff kind of intrigues me. So how do you get about doing that?
Yeah, I think that was the thing, is as I was younger and I thought, can I be involved in this world at all without learning how to play an instrument? Because I felt like that train passed me pretty quickly. So then it became, okay, if that's not on the table, how close can I get to this without that? And after a while, I knew that English and writing was going to be sort of my thing in school. And I think after a while, I just thought, is there any way for me to combine all these things? Are these things related at all? And obviously writing about music was the best thing I could think of. So I think I mean, it got to the point when I was in high school where I would just write out lyrics to a song that I liked when I was bored in class, because I liked the act of writing it. I liked rereading it. I liked thinking, oh, I can relate to this, or I can't yet. I would always write out dashboard songs and then think, I can't wait until a girl breaks my heart because I love this song so much. Like, ridiculous, right? And then you find out it's not that great.
So true.
It was a real bummer. But yeah, after that, I was in college. I was at Western Oregon, and really, really done with college. Like really like taking different stuff every term and just thinking, I'm just treading water. I have no idea where this is going to end up. And I had talked to a guy named Chad Johnson, who I talk about in the book. But he was at Tooth and Nail during Tooth and Nail, what most people consider Tooth and Nail's heyday, where he had his hand in Amberlin and Classic Crime, Under Oath. Everyone of that era, like Chad, had something to do with. And I was lucky enough to kind of have him as a phone call away at the time. And so I called him I skipped class one day and called him. And I was like, I'm just curious, like, as someone who's been in your position, do you want to hire the guy that's been on the road, that's put the work in, but maybe doesn't have, a degree, maybe doesn't have a lot of credentials, or vice versa. And he's like, oh, like the road dog every time. Like, I want the experience. And that was enough for me to kind of be like, I think I'm gonna drop out of college. Yeah, it turns out experience is more valuable in the real world. But yeah, I started up a music magazine with a friend who already had a radio station, and he knew I wanted to do journalism. And really just from going to shows, just from networking on MySpace at the time, we were able to start putting out issues that had, like, our first issue had Steven from Amberlin on the cover, which he should have never said yes to. But we had enough interactions before that he trusted us, thankfully. And yeah, I just started freelancing after that, because I knew I couldn't stick in the Christian world forever. And it kind of built from there. AP, Alternative Press, was always my like ultimate goal, to work for AP. And I interviewed to be their editor maybe like 5 years back, and didn't work, which was fine. I would have been in a lot of trouble, I think, if I would have gotten that position. I couldn't say no if they wanted me to. But
right.
Yeah. But yeah, it was certainly boiled down to just like, how can I get as close to this as possible without ever picking up a guitar?
Yep. I can feel that.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of those things, like, once you start, you probably soon realize there's kind of no barriers. You know what I mean? Because anyone can write. It's not like you obviously improve, but there's not a big learning curve per se. And you can create your own thing, which, like, that is huge appeal.
Yeah, and I think with podcasting too, I mean, we have more access than ever to make these things. Like if you can't get a job writing for a magazine, go start a blog, like start somewhere. We have access to, to all of this, and people are recording podcasts on their phones. I don't know. I had this debate with a friend the other day about like, is that good or bad? You know, that everyone has access, because I think the best will still rise to the top, but there is a little bit of that gatekeeping piece. I think a little bit of like, you got to put the work in, you know?
Yep.
100%.
I totally agree with that. And I think there's just, you don't want to get drowned out by everybody has a voice. I mean, we've all had a voice for how long now with social media?
Right.
That's only proliferated with the ability to crack open a laptop and you know, talk for an hour and then put it on the internet. So, and then promote it on 9 different social media platforms and hope someone listens. So
yeah. And I don't know about you guys, but I have to think that the accomplishment piece there is, I mean, I guess it sounds shallow, but like the names that you get then, right? Because since since anyone can put up a podcast, that's great. But then I think, can I stand out at all? What's a metric that shows me I might be doing well?
I would agree with that completely.
Yep.
And it's not all just about that though either. Like we started this the day that the pandemic essentially started in America. I say in air quotes, in middle March of 2020.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in Anthony's basement and we Skyped in with Nate because we didn't use Zoom at the time and it didn't sound as good and we didn't edit it and we slapped up 45 minutes or whatever it was, an hour, and just threw it out there. And we're like, dude, this isn't very good listening back to it now compared to what we do now. So to see exponential growth is always fun too, just in yourself. And to be able to, you know, just grind and do something you love, whether or not everybody's listening is pretty cool to me. I've enjoyed that piece of it for sure.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing to see. I mean, looking back through like the list of guests that you guys have had on already, like I said, Ryan, and then I'm super jealous of Chad Neptune.
That was awesome. Chad was cool.
Giant Further fan. But yeah, we did the same thing. My buddy Ryan and I, when we started it, we were just like, well, like I've been doing this in a different form for a lot of years. Totally. He was kind of like a speaker and naturally kind of like real charismatic and like, okay, so we got this. We don't need to like prep or talk too much beforehand. And you hit record, you see that red light and you're just like, oh no, like I don't have anything to say. And are there things that are off limits? Like, should we not talk about our families? Like, where do we want to draw the line with certain things? And yeah, it is way harder than people imagine.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Especially because podcasts are verbal, right? And it's all, we talk about it, drink real time when we're recording, but your book drops tomorrow and that's where the ink dries. Your book is called Seeking Creative Truth Through Trendy Altruism and Punk Rock, right?
Yeah. So name dropping is the main title. And yeah, that's the subtitle. But yeah, you're right. And it's super scary, honestly. For a lot of reasons, but that timing piece is just something that's now coming up or now getting to me and stressing me out, because you write a thing and it's locked in months ago. In this case, I signed my contract over 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so the pandemic, obviously, and then just, I'm still learning sort of the timeline of how a book works with a publisher, of course. But yeah, there's a certain point where it's locked in and I already know that there's stuff in there that, like, I know there's bands in there I talk about that are now broken up. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah. So you can't keep it as, up to date as you'd like, but yeah, that's the scary part. And then of course you question yourself on, did I represent this person correctly? Are they going to be pissed when they read this? And I'm like, sorry, this is already a thing that's already gone out to, however many people, nothing I can do about that. Right. Too bad you feel that way. And you can't run everything by everyone. Like every band, every person that's mentioned in the book got an email from me, saying this is a thing that I'm doing, so I hope I gave everyone that chance. But you're right. Like the ink is dry and it's terrifying. Yep.
On a smaller scale, when we put these out, I'm like, someone's going to hear that I didn't like something, but you've got a bigger scale here because it's a book, it's published, it's up on Amazon tomorrow, or the pre-order is live right now. So go pre-order it. And we'll give you all the information at the beginning, at the end of the podcast. But to reach out to those people, there's probably a few of them that are probably like, no, like don't do that, right? That had to have happened.
I had one person say they weren't cool with the story, and the book isn't. I really didn't set out to do very much, put in very much negative stuff, like, because that just, for one, it wasn't the point, and then honestly, I don't have that many negative experiences. I've probably been really lucky. The person that I reached out to and that happened with, to me, the story wasn't something that I was like, oh, I have to have this in there. Like I was wavering a bit anyway, so didn't turn into that big of a deal. But I'm going to have a quote because I reached out to a lot of friends to provide me with little like endorsement blurbs about reading the book. So I might include something that just says like, please don't include the story, and then sign it like anonymous, just to still have the joke in there. But
that's great. I love it.
Yeah, but I've just been super lucky in not having too many negative experiences.
So I can't count how many people over the years I've talked to that's like, I'd love to write a book. You know what I mean? It's like, like we're actually on the podcast with one of them, Nate. He's talked about it for years, and it hasn't happened. Well, it hasn't happened yet. So was there a pivot or turning point where you're like, you know what, I'm gonna put pen to paper and actually do this damn thing?
I think so. I started writing down tour stories originally. That was all I wanted to have down, and it was just for the people that were there. It was just as a, hey, we talk about these stories, we reminisce, when we're out at dinner, but I'm forgetting a lot of things. I'm forgetting a lot of details. And since I just enjoy even the physical act of writing, I had a really boring job at the time where I was at a computer all day. I thought this is the time to do this. I'm not going to do it when I'm at home because there's TV. So I'll do it while I'm at work. And so I started writing all these stories down. And then I was like, I think I have some pretty good interview stories too. And it started to snowball to where I thought, even if this just becomes like a blog where I put out like one story a week or something, oh, that'd be cool. But is there a way that I can do kind of two birds with one stone and find sort of a through line that would make these stories make sense as a book? And then also accomplish, wanting to write a book. I put out a very short novella before just on Amazon. It's up now for free. It's called Echo Boom. But that was just a project I did in college as a kind of an experiment and kind of like, let's see if I can write and put something out. But this is the first full-blown, publisher, all the fancy frills to it. So yeah, I think the turning point was just like, there's so many, like you guys, like every time I meet someone that's like, oh, I love that band when I was 15, or I've done, Warped Tour this many times. It's such a kindred spirit thing that you're like, there's also an audience for this. Right. Like people might want to read about this. Hopefully they do. And when I was a kid, like I remember getting into like Dashboard, let's say, and for whatever reason, I was, I guess, not a very smart 14-year-old. I would go to the bookstore thinking that I could find a book about Dashboard. And then looking in the music section and being like, oh, this is like, there's the Beatles and there's Aerosmith. So I realized, oh, like there aren't books about things that are current. And now that's, and not that they're brand new as of today or anything, but I thought, yeah, like if a kid can pick that up, pick up mine and read about stuff that was happening 10, even, 2-3 years back, like that would be really exciting if that existed when I was younger. So I thought, yeah, if I can write about something that's more current and not just, oh, you got to wait until it's 30 years later and then you can write a book about the Beatles,
Yep.
So yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
No, totally.
Another thing about the book too is it's kind of like a retro throwback, like vinyl type thing, right? It's like a tangible product that you can kind of reflect on, like we call it nerdery. Like it's like the epitome of like music appreciation in a physical or non-physical format. I got to say, like the book thing, whether it's digital, but in the physical form is almost like a throwback to like vinyl. Was there any like music books that you were reading or that you've checked out or that you kind of have in your collection? Like, nice, I want to aspire to something like this.
Yeah, I'm actually going to I haven't talked about this yet. I'm going to eventually do a really big giveaway for anyone that pre-orders or orders the book, where I put together a collection of all my favorite books about music to give away.
Nice.
Yeah, and the books that inspired me to like keep going with this. Anytime I took a break from writing this and thought, oh, maybe I'll come back to that, or maybe it's done, I would read something and be like, no, like if, like it was a bit of, if they can do it, I can do it. And if I could ever sort of be on the same shelf as some of these books, that would be really amazing. So I could give you a whole long list of stuff, but the last couple of years, actually really recently, a book called Hey Suburbia came out. This guy named Mike DeMonte, and it's a coffee table book. So it's real short. You can read it in one sitting, but it's about like the emo movement of the last, 20 years. Same with, there's an author named Taylor Markarian who used to write for AP. She's got a book called From the Basement. So realizing that there's similar books coming out was a bit twofold. It was a bit like, oh, it's been done. Maybe they don't need me in that space too. But then encouraging to be like, oh, like these books are selling and people are talking about these books. So if I can provide that's a similar story, but from a different perspective and more personal perspective, then maybe there's an audience for that.
I would say we're that audience too. Like us and maybe a little younger. That's been kind of cool to me over the last few years is seeing. I mean, it's also, it ages us a little bit, but it's seeing things that are, that were things we grew up with, getting all these, 20, 25 year anniversaries and being, retrospectives and all this. Like I lived through that when it happened when I was 10, 15, 20 years old. And now I'm, pushing 40 and I'm like, really cool to see somebody else or a younger generation pick it up and have it become, back into the forefront with all the social media and all that stuff. Seeing books about it. It's like you said, you go through the bookstore when we're 10 and you're like, there's nothing about the bands I'm into right this second. Well, now they're all there. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I just think that's such an amazing thing. And I, a few years ago, I was getting ready to go to a show with a friend, one of the guys from False Star, in fact. And we were kind of just commenting on some of the people that were walking into the venue. Like it was like teenagers that were wearing, bright Hot Topic pants and whatever like kind of style of the time was, but we were kind of just commenting and making fun a little bit of just like, oh, like these styles are so silly, and then realizing oh, you sound like such a grandpa saying that.
Yep.
And then my buddy was like, he's like, but isn't it also, he's like, those people are signing our paychecks still though, like you're still a music journalist, I'm in a band, like obviously we need to appreciate these people. And I'm like, yeah, totally, I'm not hating on anyone, but I thought that was just me at 15. Like, I'm so glad that those kids are still that stoked and they're dressing that way, whatever their way is for today. And they're still going to that show at the venue that I love. Like that the same thing is happening 10, 15 years later. That's so encouraging. If it was dead and no one was at that show, it would be a bummer and I wouldn't be there working,
Right. Yeah.
And the thing is if there was social media back then, we would have been, you could find photos of us back then looking like that. You know what I mean? So we're just thankful that we, grew up in the era that we did. Yeah. Exactly. There's no proof.
They died on MySpace. Yeah. Thankfully.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Or disposable cameras. We were super analog, right? We had the disposable cameras, the physical ticket stubs, man.
Yep.
Good old days.
I've saved every ticket that I have a stack of tickets. That's actually the cover of the book.
Nice.
Is I just threw together all my photo passes and tickets and stuff. And yeah, now when I go to a show and if they like scan my phone or something, I'm like, can I have one though? Can you give me a
exactly.
ticket? Do you have it? So
what's funny, and in recent with show announcements this year, the last couple of weeks, buying tickets to shows, Ticketmaster switched from we'll mail you ones for free to no, they're $3 if you want actual physical ticket stubs.
They're soaking you.
It sucks, man, because I'll pay the $3 because I want the ticket stubs.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, I remember. My favorite thing when I was a kid was I had to go to like our local Safeway, and they had a Ticketmaster counter, and I was like, man, remember when I had to like drive to a different town and talk to a person at a counter, and they had to print me ticket like that? That wasn't that long ago. It's so silly.
Strawberries had it, and Filene's Basement in the mall.
Basement. Yeah. Yep. Which is so foreign because those places. Not only do they not exist, but that concept doesn't exist now.
Right.
It's like, wait, even the concept of a box office, you know what I mean? Yeah. I've heard so many stories of like, I went to the box office, but they weren't open. It's because it's probably gone digital,
Yeah. I'm always surprised when I see someone working at a movie theater.
Yeah, right.
Right. So, Jameson, we definitely want to get more into the book, and we want to, obviously without giving too much away, we want to get some of your stories from the book, but I did want to share a chapter because I've read most of it. I do want to share that I loved the chapter about the base of it is how connected the music industry is, which us doing this podcast, we definitely see. But there was a quote that really resonated with me, and it's this: never burn a bridge and keep networking, even when it seems fruitless. The music industry is smaller than you think. And I had a shit-eating grin smirk on my face reading that, just because in the short time we've been doing this, like, we can totally relate. And just curious about your kind of personal experience with that, where that's either benefited from you or bit you in the ass.
Yeah. Oh, both. I think that more positive for sure, but it definitely wasn't a thing I consciously thought about until years after the fact.
Sure.
I'm pretty easy to get along with, and I don't get mad very easily or anything. So I also feel like I was probably generally polite, even if I didn't like someone. So hopefully, but one of the first people I mentioned the Stephen Christian thing in the old days, but one of the first bigger name people that I ever like interviewed and sort of knew more on a personal level was Matt Greiner from August Burns Red. I don't know if you guys are fans of them, but and I met him through a mutual friend, and then he was kind enough to like always say yes when I was starting out, and he was always my first phone call of, hey, I know one person that is in this world and on the rise. Can you just say yes to everything I ask, because I'm figuring out what I'm doing. But I talked to him the other day for my podcast, and I was like, man, so this has been like 12, 13 years or so since we met. And I was like, I could easily trace back so many things to Matt. Like so many, like him introducing me to this, or because I went to his show to talk to him about this, I met this other band. Like I probably from today backwards, if I had a time machine, I could trace everything back to Matt, which is a testament to him.
Sure.
And a testament, to that networking piece of just like, it's never going to do you much good to burn a bridge. I feel like I've had some burned maybe without my consent, mm-hmm. and it was fine. It didn't turn out to be a big deal, but the biting me in the ass part, I'd say, is just that as much as, so I feel like if you have a good interaction with someone that you look up to, if you go to a show and just have a 10-second good interaction with someone, you'll usually leave saying, like, oh man, that guy was the greatest. And you're basing it on like very little. That guy's the greatest, like I'll be a fan forever. But it works in that extreme opposite direction, where if you get snubbed, and hopefully not any of us would do this, but you hear people say like, oh, I tried to get this guy's autograph and he brushed me off or something. And so now I hate him. Now I won't listen to that band anymore. So it works in these like really extreme ways. So I think because of that, I just thought, okay, this thing, whatever it is very fragile. Mm-hmm. So burning bridges just isn't gonna help. It's not gonna, it hasn't helped me one time. If anything, just being that extra bit of nice, or just having the grace to be like, maybe that guy had a horrible day. Like he doesn't, he can't please everybody. It's fine. So thankfully, I don't think it's bit me in the ass too many times. When it did, it was those types of situations where, I would have to call on a favor and somebody would say, oh, I don't want to interview that band because one time one of those guys hit on my girlfriend. So this was like when I was an editor in a magazine. I remember assigning somebody, hey, I need you to go, please go do this assignment. Oh, no, I can't. Like that guy talked to my girlfriend at Warped Tour 5 years ago. But that, not even that bit me, but it was more of just, oh, like that's a mentality people have and fans have, was that little of a thing. Like, no, screw that band forever because that dude hit on my girlfriend. It's just,
totally guilty of that. Yep.
Yeah.
The hitting on the girlfriend part.
No. Holding grudges.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you, and I think we've been pretty good about that as far as it's a good way to live your life anyway, right? I mean, not necessarily just in the music industry or whatever you're doing, outside of that too. It's a good way to try to try not to burn bridges if you can, and occasionally it's going to happen. I mean, that stuff does happen totally, but being positive and keeping doors open, it's way better than closing them and saying I'm done with that, because you never know when that open door is going to lead to something else.
Yeah, and I think I've definitely dealt with people that I think in their minds they were just being really tenacious, like they were being a hustler about asking for something, which I can totally appreciate. But there's that saying about you get more bees with honey than vinegar. Is that what it is? I definitely remember like quoting that to someone and then being like I'm like basically that having that hustler argument of just like, why can't you give me that thing? I know you have that information. I'm just trying to get ahead like everyone else. And it's like, fine, I get that, but there's, be gracious about it.
Yeah, totally. We want to, I got a question about a story. You gave us a couple before we went on. I got to hear about how you embarrassed yourself in front of MGK.
This was like 2013. So he was on Warped Tour, and I knew vaguely who he was. It's such a cool rapper name. And I knew that he was on Puff Daddy's label, P. Diddy. I'm aging myself saying Puff Daddy, who I was also a big fan of in third grade, ironically. So I knew a little bit about who he was, but I was at Warped Tour in Portland. My boss at Substream, he's in Ohio, he was just texting me throughout the day, just kind of checking on interviews and stuff. And he's like, hey, like there's this guy, MGK, that's at Warped Tour. He's from Ohio. we really think he's like going to be something. So we want to do a cover with him soon. So can you just kind of go, find him, introduce yourself, just so we kind of have like a contact for next time. And he's like, I talked to his manager, like just basically go knock on his door of his bus. So it was like 110 that day in Portland. I was just already dying. I wore all black because I'm cool, I guess. And so I'm just dying. I'm like walking around Warped Tour with this huge cup of ice. So I go knock on his door. I walk into his bus. It's just full of people, like wall to wall people. He's not anywhere to be found. And everyone in there is like kind of like an old dude too. So I'm just totally lost. I was like, there's no way that he knows why I'm here. Somebody's got to know though. Like apparently the point person wasn't even there. So it was just a big, like, why are you here? And then I'm like, yeah, I don't know why I'm here. So anyways, he comes out and we just shake hands, take a picture. I'll send you guys the picture. It's so embarrassing. We take a picture, and before, like, I turned to say something to him to like start kind of schmoozing about the magazine, and he's gone. Like he's already in the back room. And so then I'm like, I don't know if I should leave. Like his set's coming up soon. I'm kind of just trying to chit chat with people. So eventually he gets dressed. We start walking to the venue, and he's just like, he's in the zone. Like no one else exists to him. And so I'm walking just directly behind him, and I'm talking to who's like his radio manager. I don't know. Again, I'm so like fish out of water and so lost already. I'm just like trying to like do my job well and make some sort of connection. And so we're walking, and I really loudly, I go, so where are you guys from? And all I had walking to the bus was I was trying to Google him just to have like some quick facts, and it wasn't working. I couldn't get online. So really loud. Yeah. I just think I'll just go real basic. And where are you guys from? And the guy that was next to me turns to me. MGK kind of turns over his shoulder, just kind of looking at me real odd. And one of the guys just goes, Cleveland. And they just like start walking faster and totally like stop walking with us, basically. So okay. So anyways, I watch his show. It's fine. The next day I'm like, all right, like let's Google this guy. What's the big deal? The first thing that comes up is he is like all about Cleveland. Like at the time, especially, that was his whole deal. Like I couldn't Google one thing without it being like, and here's my hit song called Cleveland. And like, yeah, just everything. So apparently I asked like the one question I could have just said anything. How was your day or anything?
Right.
Yeah. He never talked to us again. I mean, I doubt he remembered that, but we never had him. We never got him again. And now he's, dating Travis Barker or something. So
yeah, pretty much.
He might have a grudge against you now.
That's how I tried to write about it in the book, was that it was me and then it was Eminem.
Right. Yep. You first.
Yeah. Guys like me and Eminem just have a target on our backs.
So true, man. So true.
Was Killshot about you? Was that the diss track?
Yeah. It was a veiled. Yeah. I'm the rap devil, really.
That's funny. Switching gears a little bit too. We've talked about this person a few times, especially recently. There's a little conspiracy theory going on with Taylor Swift. You got a story about her in the book too, right?
I do. Is there a conspiracy theory about her though?
Oh, Nate has one. Nate, go ahead and
what is it?
I don't disagree with it, but I do like it. And
is it that she's actually Lord?
That's good too. No, before Nate says it, I'm going to just put this out there. We're just talking. We're not accusing anybody of anything. This is just a fun segment. Go ahead, Nate.
Yep. This is just off the cuff. Is it, we're not trying to offend anyone, but
we know the Swifties are brutal. So
yeah, we get it. We understand business. We know that units need to be sold, but Taylor Swift apparently keeps signing albums and they keep arriving in record stores, and it's limited. Supposedly there's no like cap, there's no number, there's no like 1 out of 400 or whatever, and they just keep appearing. They sell out, they appear, they sell out, they appear. And the conspiracy is basically, we don't think she's signing these albums because A, she probably doesn't have the time, and B, she's like one of the biggest artists of all time. Is she really signing these? So the conspiracy kind of ties back to she's not signing them, but they're selling those to just sell a shitload of CDs to get that record to diamond.
And they're saying this is like hand signed by Taylor Swift.
Yep.
And it is hand signed by someone.
Yeah, someone.
Yeah, there's no way.
Right. There's no way.
Yeah. If they come after us, I'll stand my ground on that one.
Well, I mean, it's just speculation, right? We're just talking. But at the same time, they do just keep magically reappearing. Like they started showing up last summer. We're a year in and they're still at record shops. My wife bought me one in Burlington, Vermont a couple of weeks ago. She's like, I bought you a CD that Taylor Swift signed. I was like, did she really sign it though?
Yeah.
And then do they cost more, do you think? I don't know.
No, they're
what CDs now
$14,
say.
13
No.
bucks or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's where it gets
Hmm.
really conspiracy-ish. It's like $13.49 or something at my local record store, and I'm like, what? Yeah, right. And it's sealed. And it's sealed.
It's
like,
not
okay.
numbered. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not numbered. I mean,
One of many.
One of many. We all collect, merchandise, and most of my autographs have been in person. So it's kind of like I don't trust anyone. I have like this weird thing where I used to go on eBay and see so many fake autographs. I'm like, I don't trust anyone unless I get it myself. So that's where it started.
I always thought you had to get it yourself because you had to have a story that went along with it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I still have like a signed like 30 Seconds to Mars ticket, or no, 30 ticket and their Beautiful Lie album. And when he won an Oscar, I was like, like this is that kind of extra cool now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's so funny. I don't think that's a conspiracy theory. I think that's absolutely true.
Is that
I'll
the
go
story
on
in the
record.
book? You have the same story from the book?
The same story. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait a sec. I didn't get her to sign my CD. No, when I worked at Sam Goody, we had all these in-store performances, and this must have been 2004 or 2005. And my boss said, "Hey, we're going to have this young country singer playing tomorrow night. Do you want to work that night?" And I was like, "Nope, I hate country." And being such a punk kid and not liking country, I was like, "Nope, I would really hate to do that. Does anyone else want to do it?" And so other people volunteered. And the next day, you had to, if you were an employee, you also had to dress up in cowboy stuff. That was an added non-bonus.
Yeah.
So yeah, I worked the next day, and I was like, "Hey, every in-store I've been to so far that we've had has been like a colossal failure. Like, how'd it go last night?" And they're like, "It was packed. Like, they were like, none of us knew who this girl was. Like, our boss knew who she was, but there were so many people there." And they were just like, she was fine, like sang a couple songs. She was really polite, really tall. Like, that's all they really said. And they plopped down this giant box of CDs, and I pulled it out. And this is the quote that I have in the book. But I pulled the CD out, and I said, "Taylor Swift, huh? We're never going to hear about this girl again." And now I'm such a giant fan too.
Well,
But
you're talking about conspiracy theories with three guys that you just met about Taylor Swift today. 17 years later? So
Yeah.
That's part of the theory, I think. But I kicked myself for that. It was literally stuff where it was like when Silverstein would be there, or the band like Edema, like just stuff. And I love Silverstein still, but I would have 10 times rather been like, "Can I please work that Silverstein signing," than Taylor Swift, because and then within a month or so, she was just everywhere, and she doesn't return my phone calls now, I'll tell you that.
yeah, us either.
Yeah, one of the few times I was completely wrong about an A-lister,
So Jameson, we do a lightning round with our guests, which is basically, we joke, it's all the questions that didn't fit in the interview.
Yeah.
Naturally. But before we do that, if you could like summarize your book, who is it for fans of? Who do you think would really enjoy it?
Yeah, I keep saying that it's like Almost Famous meets the movie Saved, because there is some stuff kind of about growing up in church, and about it's certainly not preachy by any means, but I really just wanted to look at how music and creativity had impacted bigger things in our lives, like faith, or like what you choose to do as a job. So I think it's for anyone that was into that scene, like a lot of the bands we've been talking about. I think there's a good dose of nostalgia, but also hopefully stuff that's a bit more current. And in the end, I hope it's also just encouraging. Like, I hope people start their podcast, start their blog. Like, as you guys said, there's no barrier to entry. So I hope that, like those other books that I mentioned, that this can be even a little bit of a spark of, like, I maybe working in the industry I fell in love with isn't that difficult. Maybe I can take that first step tomorrow. So I hope it's encouraging in that way as well.
Yeah. In having read, like I said, I've read most of it. And I mean, I don't think I've ever read a book and had a shit-eating grin on my face. And when I read that excerpt about just how connected the music industry is, you did just that. So you moved me with it. So it's been a good read so far, and I would encourage certainly all of our listeners, and we'll promote it on all the socials and whatnot.
Awesome. I might have to quote you saying that the book gave you a shit-eating grin.
Perfect. Put it in there.
Yeah, full circle.
And I mean, this is dropping midday on Monday, the day before it's out. So the pre-order is still live. Go pre-order it. Go buy it tomorrow. Amazon, right? Amazon.com is the best bet to do that right now. We'll have links on our stuff, so you'll see it there. If you've clicked on this episode, you probably have followed us and can see it there as well.
Yep. And Jameson signs all of them, just like Taylor Swift.
Yeah, every single one.
Oh, you beat me to that. My assistant signs all of them.
Nice.
Gotta move units. Support the scan. So want to get in the lightning round?
Yeah.
Nate, you start us out.
I see the nerdery behind him. So Nate, yeah, you gotta do it, man. You gotta ask the question.
Perfect. Yeah, nerdery is the question. Nerdery is, like I described earlier, is basically a tangible and or non-tangible music memory, music backstage pass, ticket stub, poster, whatever it is. What is your favorite personal piece of nerdery?
Yeah, I'm so glad this is behind me now that I can look at. I have two things behind me that would be those pieces. So two of the cover pieces that I did for Substream magazine, they gave me so much freedom to cover the bands I wanted, and then to put bands on the cover that I thought, like, this is a band that deserves that chance. So one of them is the band Tonight Alive from Australia, and I because I was getting stuff signed a lot at the time. I had each member sign that, so I have the signed copy of the cover. And then the other one also signed, I don't think you can see it, but it's the band Let Live. So their singer Jason Butler, who's now in the Fever 333, and it is a huge deal. That was a cover that I called the Good Guys issue, and it was born out of a bunch of bullshit, basically, where I was getting really fed up with the music scene and with a lot of frontmen who were just, in my opinion, way too egotistical. So I decided to do my little bit of protest and saying, here's the highlights of some men and women who I feel like are doing a bit better and are presenting a bit better of an image in this music scene. And Jason was sort of the poster boy for that. So there's a signed copy of his cover back there too.
Nice.
Yeah, for the listener at home, he's got a bunch of awesome stuff hanging behind him, and I kind of want to go through all of it, but we won't do that to you right now.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Now, you're right about the personal story associated with the signature. Like, that's what it's all about. For sure. I mean, that's where it all originated from. That's why I'm kind of disgruntled about the whole supposed conspiracy theory with the Taylor Swift things. It's like,
I can't get over it, man.
Yeah, like, what's the point then? You know, if I can just buy.
That's 3 episodes in a row, man. What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Keep it going.
I'm so pissed. No grudge. It's okay.
So, in your time, bopping around the country, seeing different venues, seeing different cities, what was one of your favorite concert venues to see a show at that wasn't necessarily like your hometown?
Oh yeah, I think doing anything on the Sunset Strip in LA, and I think I hopefully don't have these mixed up with what the Sunset Strip is, but stuff like the Cat Club and the Viper Room, and there's just all this history. There's a lot of sad LA history in any of those venues. Like Fallstar, I remember they played at the Cat Club, and I went out on the street and was kind of looking around, getting my bearings of where we were on the Strip, and I saw the Viper Room, which is in the late 80s, early 90s, was a club that Johnny Depp owned, and that's where River Phoenix died. River Phoenix died on the sidewalk, basically right in front of the Viper Room. So, and then knowing like Motley Crue played the Cat Club and stuff. So any of those LA things, and it's not even bands that I necessarily love. Like I don't love Motley Crue or anything, but there's just to know that in the 70s or 80s, there was this like community going on that was thriving and that was really strange. Yeah. Those types of places with that type of history, I think, are just really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I can relate with that. Just even driving by like the Troubadour and you see like that sign that's like straight out of the 60s, you're like, there's so many stories in that room right now. You know?
Yeah. Same with I've only been to one show there, but Irving Plaza in New York City.
Oh, great room.
Yeah. Yep. But even some of the Portland venues, I think the first few times that I was able to like step on the stage for, whatever, after the show or for whatever reason, there is a cool, just like, oh, the people that have stood here,
What's that venue in Portland that has like the bouncy ball floor?
Crystal Ballroom.
Crystal Ballroom. Nice. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Have you been there?
I didn't. My brother lived in Portland for a while, so I always like tried to plan trips around shows.
Yeah.
And I think it was like the Black Keys were playing there before they blew up. And I was like, shit, I missed it. But I was like, I remember it was at that venue, and I remember talking to someone about it, geeking out, like nerding out. And they're like, yeah, it's really cool. The floor is like bouncy balls, basically. So you're like going up and down to the show. I'm like, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite like a trampoline, thankfully, but I mean, yeah, I've gotten like legitimately nauseous standing there before.
Oh wow,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the Roxy. I remember like taking a piss, and I'm like, there's probably been some shenanigans in this room, you know?
Yeah. The bathrooms are a whole different story
Yeah.
at any venue.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The Satyricon here in Portland too. It's not here anymore, but that was like the most rundown venue we had. And at the time I went to a Fall Star show there, and I was reading. I read that there was something like Foo Fighters' second show of all time. You know, they played a show in Seattle and then came down on tour. So their second show ever was at this really, really dank, horrible venue in Portland. And it was like a big deal when they took it down. And everyone's like, but it was so gross. And they're like, I know, like that's what a venue is.
Yep. Yeah, right. We love those rooms. We've talked about that numerous times on this pod. I mean, we have one of those rooms in Portland, the Space. The Killers played in the Space back in like 03, 04, right before they blew up. And that holds like, I don't even know, 150 people, 200 people. Yeah, it's tiny.
Cool.
To think they played there when, you know, playing Somebody Told Me, and everybody's like, oh wow, these guys are cool. And then they obviously became massive.
Yeah. Like, oh, that's
we love
kind
those
of a catchy
places.
song. Yeah.
We love those places.
I love that so many bands are doing living room tours as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Vinny from the Movie Life. You can, if you got, I don't know what he costs, but if you got a few bucks, he'll come to you.
Oh yeah. You can hire. I know Mike Herrera from MXPX plays weddings and birthdays and stuff all the time. I almost tried to get some of my friends to sneakily hire him for my birthday once. They didn't take the bait.
So got another one, another question here for you. So any bands, and I'm gonna caveat this by saying any bands besides MXPX, but any bands growing up that you felt were, and I use quotes, your band. So like for me, growing up, the Receiving End of Sirens, got into them from the jump, With Honor. Like those two bands come to mind where I was like, these are my bands. Like I want everyone to hear them. I got into them early. So besides MXPX, who do you got?
Yeah, you'll have to stop me from naming them, but Dashboard is a huge one, and Saves the Day as well. I remember hearing those two bands on the same day and thinking, well, I'll probably go throw out my Korn and Limp Bizkit albums now because now I want to listen to this music and be sad. And those would be up there. The Get Up Kids, Thursday. Those are all bands that I just felt like I had a lot of ownership over, yet I wanted to show to everyone. And I couldn't really explain why they were so incredible. Thursday made me want to not write anymore because of how amazing Jeff's lyrics are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Receiving End of Sirens, I wouldn't hold them up as my top 5 or anything, but so underrated, that band.
Yep, totally.
Yeah,
yep.
Didn't last long enough, and I don't know if they're gonna do those reunion shows now or not.
We talked about I talked about trying to go down to one of those. Because he got me into them a little bit in college. I used to joke with him about it, but like looking back on it, I'm like, these guys are great. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. High school. Yeah. Hopefully they do them.
I think so. They used to tour with Envy on the Coast a lot, and I think they were going to do some shows together.
Yeah. So
both those bands I feel like just didn't get like enough time or like a fair chance. They're both incredible.
Cool. All right, Jameson. Anything else you want to promote? We've got the book. Obviously, give us the name of the book again.
Yeah, name of the book is Name Dropping, Seeking Creative Truth Through Trendy Altruism and Punk Rock, and it'll be out as of tomorrow. You can pre-order it today, Amazon, and then my Instagram is @NameDroppingBook, which is kind of the hub for everything. I also mentioned my podcast. It's been kind of on the back burner a little bit with the book, but it's called Godspeed, and I interview with a lot of bands, a lot of authors, a lot of comedians. So those are the two main things going right now.
So Amazon for the book, and then you can find podcasts pretty much anywhere, right?
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Cool.
Check it out. I mean, if you listen to us, you'll definitely like it. We have metrics into the demographic of our listenership and knowing the ages and whatnot. Our age, the ages of our listeners would love it. I just know in the bands we like and talk about. So go check it out, and you won't regret it.
Yeah. Yep.
Jameson, I appreciate you lending your time today.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. It's so much fun to do. And like I said, I think it's pretty easy to quickly tell that you're all cut from the same cloth with this kind of stuff. So it makes the conversation pretty easy.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We appreciate it, Jameson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that was a lot of fun. Man, he went for it, like you said, Tone. Like I've always wanted to write a book about music, about nerdery, about our experiences, and we kind of pivoted to the podcast, which I think is a better situation for me, just because we can kind of riff off each other. But he actually went for the book, and really cool stories from his experiences in the industry. Jameson was super cool.
There's a bit of envy there from from my perspective, because one, I'd love to write a book, but the other thing is I don't have that great of a memory, I think, to that detail. And what he did is he took kind of a, tour notes and tour diary when he was on tour, that he, has that as a reference point, which, I mean, if you read the book, it'll all make sense. And man, I wish I did that. I think I had a live journal back in the day, which I think I deleted. But beyond that, that's it. And those memories are gone for the most part. And I know I had a ton of fun going to shows growing up, and it was cool to see his perspective. And he teased one in the beginning, which, go pick up the book. It's from the very beginning. It's from the end of that Sleeping Giant show that he was at. And it's funny. I think it's a wild experience.
Yeah, and cut to somebody looking for Twan's live journal on the deep dark web right now. I had one too because you had one, so
it was fun to keep in touch with friends.
It was, and it was fun to it was like early blogging essentially about, we went to a concert or you found a new record or any of that stuff. So we were doing that stuff way back, geez, 17, 18 years ago too. Awesome conversation with Jameson. Thoughtful guy, had a lot of really good insight into being around the industry for a very long time now, it sounds. I think close to 10 to 15, 16 years, something like that. So, really cool to talk to somebody in that capacity that has a book coming out. First for us to have an author. And when we first started DMing with him back, it was April, I want to say. So 3-4 months ago now. I was just excited about the prospect of hearing some of these stories and talking to somebody who is our age and grew up in a similar scene and grew up with, the similar type of love for the industry that we all have. So pretty comfortable fit, I felt like, and a good conversation all around. So go check out the book.
Yeah, that was cool, man. Especially another thing I thought of too is the fact that he's done so many other jobs in the industry, and it kind of led to the book almost like in a perfect chronological order. Like that's not the end point, but definitely the, collection of notes and, like you said, journals, kind of all compounding to that kind of result, which is the book. So yeah, definitely check it out. I can't wait to read more of it as well.
Yeah, and you can't fake that. You have to live that. And we've said this about our podcast, is we could have had this podcast 10 years ago. It wouldn't have hit the same. It would have been a very different experience because we've lived since then and we have more time to reflect and we've seen more. And again, I won't discount the age being similar age. And not to say that if you're not our age, you won't enjoy the book. You'll love the book. But there's just something about growing up with being 16 and being turned on to, bands from Tooth and Nail and Solid State and that scene. It's like, if you know, and he knows and we know, so there's a connection there. So it was just, most people in my day-to-day life don't know anything about it. So it's very cool to connect with people that do. And we do that every week.
We've been very fortunate to do that every week, and thank you podheads for listening and going on whatever ride we take you on from week to week, and we're really excited. I mean, there might be a few new ones this week after our week last week, so appreciate you sticking around, and hopefully we'll bring more stuff like this to you down the road. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is to talk to cool people in and around the industry and find out their story and come at it from our nerdery perspective.
100%. If anything, talking to Jameson tonight just added more fuel to my fire and doing this podcast. So appreciate you guys and appreciate all our listeners out there. Have a good one. Cheers.
Episode 71. Thank you to everyone. Peace.
Peace, podheads.